And with Straightsmile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com. We're going to talk today about sustainable orthodontics and why you should care and how you can learn more. So I'm going to go into that in just a second, but if you want to learn more, we are doing a webinar on May the 7th. I believe it's at 7 p.m. Eastern. The time and the registration link is on my website, Straightsmile Solutions. Go to classes, you will see the webinar. It is free, 2 CE units. It's myself and 2 other colleagues with over 75 years of experience in the orthodontic and aligner industry, telling you all about how to do orthodontics more sustainably, how to save more money, how to help the environment with your orthodontics. I think it's going to blow you away. It is definitely the first time, as far as I know, this has been done in a webinar, and it's kind of a brainchild of ours. So we're really excited to share it with you. It is being sponsored by Gerety Dental. So let's talk about it. Why? Why do you care? Well, first of all, if you're not familiar with how currently the vast majority of big aligner companies, and when I say big aligner companies, I mean the public multi-million-dollar ones, not some of the small itty-bitty ones. There's a few itty-bitty startups that are doing things a little bit differently, although I feel like it's still kind of in beta. I'm not ready to take my complex cases and move them to a startup that's doing things differently when right now, with the existing tools and companies that exist, I can get excellent and perfect outcomes for a reasonable price. So let's talk about that a little bit. So regular big aligner companies do make aligners the old-fashioned way. And if you want to know more about making aligners, I'm not like super into the whole 3D printing thing, but I know a fair amount about it. And I do have some content on my channel about it. And you can do it in-house too. You can outsource it, but essentially the way it's going to work is you're going to take your scan of whatever scanner you use. It turns into a file. From there, the STL files are segmented, and you make a setup. It's put into stages. I might be saying this wrong, 1 through 20, 1 through 30, 1 through 40. And then they print these little resin models, one for each stage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then they use the plastic or the thermoforming material, and you can even see this. These are old aligner models. It's been cut out. It's been scored with a heat knife or whatever, or a drill. It's thermoformed on top of it. So there's a lot of rubbish. There's a lot of waste when you go to make aligners. There's each of these models, 1 through whatever, upper and lower, as well as the plastic that's on top. There's a lot of excess flash plastic that's trimmed away. The only part that's actually used is the aligner that actually is delivered, which is just this thin little wafer area. Otherwise, a lot of it goes in the trash can. Of course, that's not good for the ocean. Also, you got to figure that's all that wasted plastic is probably not good for your pocketbook either. There's got to be a better way, right? And then we're not even mentioning all the revisions and refinements that goes into these aligners. Every time you throw away a box of all these extra aligners, I know it bothers my kids. They're both currently in aligners therapy. And when they have to do a refinement, which it's pretty much a one-off, but it's a really hard case, or you're in mixed dentition, it's gonna happen. So if it's not a hard case and you know what you're doing, it shouldn't be happening if the patient is compliant and you have an accountability loop. But anyways, that is a whole different conversation. And I know it bothers my kids. So if it bothers my kids, it bothers all kids. Most logical kids, that they know they're throwing away stuff. And kids nowadays are much more aware of this. Like, why? Why are we throwing this away? And you're right. I say, why? That's a great question. So okay, that is the sustainability. Of course, we didn't even mention the whole impression thing. Impression's so not sustainable. Like, that's just so bad. We're throwing away these single-use trays, all this plastic, multiple times making plastic, not to mention the toxins that are going into the patient's mouth. That's absolutely disgusting. I would personally refuse to do an aligner treatment if they took impressions on me, but that's just me. You need to have a sustainable orthodontic practice or a sustainable dental practice. This is just way too old school. It needs to go if you're taking impressions. It just kind of horrifies me. It's not hard nowadays to get an affordable scanner, and we will be talking about affordable scanners on our webinar as well. How to get a scanner for an affordable price. No, you do not have to be paying $40,000, $30,000. It's absolutely ridiculous. Of course, if you want to work with Align Technology, you're going to have to pay their premium price if you're in the United States. But if there's a lot of other aligner companies out there and a lot of other ways to do orthodontics that don't require you using an expensive aligner company, and that's what we're going to be talking about in our webinar on May the 7th. Okay, so that's the sustainability part. Now let's talk about the benefits to you and why you should care. Well, I mean, saving money, right? I mean, obviously, the big aligner brand out there, you know who I'm talking about, you have to pay them, at least in the US, unless you have a volume discount, $2,000 for a comprehensive case upfront. You know, you're upside down in your payments, usually, unless you have some very wealthy patients who pay you upfront. If they're using insurance or they're doing payment plans, which most people do, you're going to be underwater on the case until you get positive, which is not something that most doctors want to do. So what are our options? Well, we're going to be talking in the webinar, not only saving money by getting a scanner, of course, and then talking about other aligner brands that might be out there, but also utilizing techniques that orthodontists do all the time for their aligner treatments, which is learning phase 1 treatment to make a really hard case much, much, much easier so that it can be finished in a simple aligner system, or doing hybrid treatment, doing a few braces, top braces, limited braces, 4 months, 3 months, 6 months max, you know, 1 or 2 wires, maybe 3 max, sometimes just 1, just to get the harder movements out of the way. There are definitely movements that are much, much easier to do in braces, and there are movements that are much, much easier to do in aligners. So if you use the best of both worlds, and you don't always have a patient that's okay with that. Sometimes you're gonna have some patients that are like, no, I will never have aligners, or no, I will never have braces. Okay, you know, well then I guess we have to do it all with one or the other, and maybe it'll take longer and the results won't be as good because you're being a pain in the butt. But if you're willing to be flexible, you know, our patient's willing to be flexible and you can get the best of both worlds, we can save so much money by correcting the vertical with an appliance perhaps first, you know, or, you know, the open bite or the deep bite or the sagittal AP, you know, a little lower jaw, a little upper jaw, you know, the class 3, the class 2, deep bite, the open bite. We can put an expander in. Obviously, this type of interdisciplinary care is catching on because Invisalign just launched their expanders, which are a whole separate price than their aligners. So they're getting into the phase 1, early phase 1 world, which I have been preaching for how long? I have so much content, it's free out there. Why are you paying like $700 for their expander? It's absolutely insane. I mean, no offense. It's great they're doing it, but $700? Come on, man. Save some money. That's crazy. And they don't even do lower expansion. But anyways, that's a whole nother thing. I'm glad that they're creating awareness because anytime Invisalign does something, it creates awareness that something needs to be done. And people are like, oh, I didn't learn how to do expanders. I was just, you know, tipping teeth and widening arches with aligners. Well, yeah, that's not skeletal expansion. There's no limited airway benefits with that. A lot less than if you actually move the bones. So let's do things right, you know, if the patient is young enough. Anyways, I digress. This is why you should attend our webinar on May the 7th. I think you're going to learn a lot. You're going to save a lot of money. It's going to open up your mind to what else is out there. Get away from those $2,000 lab fees. Learn to use simple principles that orthodontists do every day to take an expensive lab fee and make it much, much smaller by tackling the hard problems earlier or with a few braces. All right, thanks so much.